Reading now from the New York Times of Saturday, June 21st of 1997. The following article is by Bernard Weinraub, W-E-I-N-R-A-U-B, at State Line, Hollywood, June 20th, and headlined, Austrian Tutor, played by Brad Pitt, was a Nazi. Subtitle, an SS member fled from the British and crossed the Himalayas. The article reads in part, a forthcoming film starring Brad Pitt as an Austrian mountaineer who treks to Tibet during World War II and befriends the young Dalai Lama has been plunged into controversy over the revelation that the Austrian had a Nazi past. The film, 7 Years in Tibet, is to be released by TriStar, a division of Sony, on October 8th. It is based on an autobiographical account by Heinrich Harrer, H-A-R-R-E-R, now 84, about his escape from a British internment camp in India and his trek across the Himalayas to Tibet, where he tutored the 11-year-old Dalai Lama, the spiritual leader. Mr. Harrer left Tibet in 1951, shortly after China overran the kingdom, and has remained friends with him, that is to say the Dalai Lama. What has provoked unease and criticism is the detailed revelation late last month by the German magazine Stern that Mr. Harrer was a member of Hitler's SS, the Nazi special police, with a rank equivalent to sergeant. The magazine also published a photograph of Mr. Harrer with Hitler, who was congratulating him on a mountaineering expedition. Mr. Harrer had never indicated what he was in the SS, saying only that he was seized by the British while on a mountaineering expedition in the Himalayas because he was Austrian. Rabbi Abraham Cooper, Associate Dean of the Simon Wiesenthal Center in Los Angeles, a human rights group for Holocaust studies and issues, said there was no indication that Mr. Harrer had participated in atrocities as a member of the SS. The 80-page file on Mr. Harrer, held by the German Federal Archives in Berlin, shows that he was a sports instructor, according to Stern. But Rabbi Cooper, whose organization made available translated German documents about Mr. Harrer, said that the Wiesenthal Center was appalled that the Austrian had never admitted that he was a member of the SS. No one forced him to join the SS, Rabbi Cooper said. Here is someone who insists on the public limelight and has never utilized that opportunity to make a definitive statement saying, I wasn't a kid, I made a terrible mistake. I voluntarily embraced a racist ideology that nearly brought this planet to ruin. Rabbi Cooper added, he's suffering from Waldheimer's disease. The reference was to Kurt Waldheim, the former United Nations Secretary General, who hid his Nazi past for decades. Skipping down, Stern reported that Mr. Harrer had joined the Nazi SA, or Sturmabteilung, or stormtroops in Austria in 1933, while the organization was still illegal. 5 years later, he joined the elite SS, or Schutzstaffel, or protective echelon. The magazine also published a 1938 document in which Mr. Harrer had asked Heinrich Himmler, the SS leader, for permission to marry and provided the requisite family trees to show that he and his bride-to-be were so-called Aryans. Permission was granted. And again, this forthcoming film is due to be released later this year. It's called 7 Years in Tibet, and the hero, Brad Pitt, is basically a former SS man who tutors the Dalai Lama and is represented here as a good guy, sort of rehabilitating to a certain extent, at least in this instance, the image of the SS. Now, as a general consideration, it should not come as a particular surprise to a knowledgeable student of the Third Reich and the Second World War to see an SS man involved with the Dalai Lama. This is not to cast aspersions on the Dalai Lama, but rather the Nazis and the SS in particular had a considerable interest in Tibet, which they saw as being relevant to potential archaeological discoveries, which the Nazis viewed as reinforcing some of their occult beliefs concerning the origin of the, quote, Aryan race, unquote. And again, note the quotes. And in fact, in search of proof for some of their archaeological proof for some of their occult beliefs, the Nazis sent a number of expeditions to Tibet, and we're going to take a look at that right now. We're going to rely for our information on a book entitled Unholy Alliance, subtitled A History of Nazi Involvement with the Occult. That book was authored by Peter Levenda, last name Levenda, and in this book there's considerable discussion of the Nazi expeditions to Tibet, and they made a number of them. And so again, it should not be all that surprising to see that the Dalai Lama's tutor was a former SS man, because that is an area of the world where the SS took a lot, in which the SS took a lot of interest. I also wonder whether his escape from the British prison camp, Mr. Harr's escape was really as miraculous as he made it out to be. I wonder whether perhaps he went to work for Western intelligence, as so many Nazis and SS men did. Harr basically says that on his fourth or fifth try, since the British had just left the escape route open, he basically just lit out straight for the Himalayas. And again, I wonder whether perhaps there's more to the story of his escape than we have been told.